How to close an LLC. We're going to talk about the reasons you might keep it open, the reasons you might want to close it, pros and cons, and then if you stick around, I'll tell you exactly how to close that LLC. So what type of LLCs are we talking about? Today we're talking about LLCs that you may have filed a couple months ago, a couple years ago for an idea that maybe never took off, you never got around to doing, but you've got this LLC sitting out there, we'll call it a dormant LLC. There's not money coming in, there's not a ton of assets, it's just an LLC that just kind of exists on paper. We call this a dormant LLC. This video is not for someone who has had a company that's had significant gross revenues, a lot of debts, liabilities, and things. There's a real process that you got to go through to close out and work with creditors or bankruptcy, that sort of thing. That I'm going to send you for professional advice to make sure that you're protecting yourself and you don't expose yourself personally in that process. So this again is for more dormant LLCs. Do we keep them open? So let's talk about it a little bit. So some people think keeping it open might help. Let's say they have a new idea later on and your LLC's then been open for 4 or 5 years rather than a brand new LLC. I think there's an idea that can help with like a credit score or getting credit. Not exactly my field of expertise, but I've never seen really any evidence to support that. If it's a business without any significant assets and it's new, anyone extending credit to you is still going to make you sign personally. So I don't really find that to be a very compelling argument to keep it open. Another thing to consider is if I close it, do I then expose myself to liabilities? So that's an important consideration. If you have binding agreements out there or you've borrowed money or there are things that are liabilities on that LLC, you've really been in business interacting with people a lot, then it's a consideration. Usually for a dormant LLC is not something that, that's for the LLCs we're talking about before that were very active. Here we're talking about dormant LLCs, so there's not really a lot of liabilities. But there are reasons to close it. And that's usually what I think you should do. And the reason is well, there's fees associated with running an LLC. So a lot of states like California, they're charging you a fortune every year just to have the LLC. My state in South Carolina doesn't have annual fees, so that's not a huge cost. You have to look at your state, but it's an ongoing cost in many states. So that's one reason. There's no reason to pay all these fees. Another reason is when you got this LLC set up, you may have had an EIN that files as an S or a C. You can do that out of LLCs, and so you want to know how you're set up. And if that's the case, the IRS is expecting you to file a tax return. So if you don't, even if it's zeros all the way in, you could face penalties, and it's a couple $100 every month that it doesn't get filed. So let's say you forget about this thing for 5 years and you're getting auto charged out of California, $850 or whatever it is, a couple $100 every month. You're looking at thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars that you would owe just by doing nothing. Another reason that I think is really persuasive is you have this entity out there asking to be taken advantage of. There's identity theft. You look at the COVID era with PPPs and all this sort of stuff, and people can kind of take over that LLC, try to file a tax return with false numbers to get money back, try to apply for government funds. They can try to basically take over that LLC just like any other identity theft. So to me, the LLC, if you're not using it, go ahead and close it down so you don't have to think about any of this stuff. You just have something out there that can really only cause you harm. It may not, but there's no significant benefit that I can see to keeping it open. All right, so that brings us to how do we close it? All right, there's going to be kind of 2 steps in this. The first one is you got to go through your state to file a dissolution process. So every state's a little bit different. Some states make you get like a tax clearance letter, and then when you get that, you can dissolve the entity. Some you can just dissolve it immediately. So what you want to do is kind of clear out your bank account if there's anything in there, pay anyone that you owe out of it, get whatever you need for the state, and then dissolve that entity in your state. And the next thing you want to do is if you have been filing tax returns as a C or an S, or the business has been filing tax returns, and if you haven't, then I'll send you to a professional again to make sure that you minimize whatever trouble you're in. But you will file one more tax return, and it's whenever you close it. You don't have to wait till a tax deadline. And on the front page, there's a place to select this is the final tax return. And that's how you close out the EIN. So now you're closed with the IRS and you're closed with the state. And this LLC is shut down and your liabilities are closed and you can move on to your next business idea. I hope that video is helpful. Drop comments if you have any questions. And even though this LLC is getting closed, we wish you luck on your next business.